Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Spoilers, Isaiah brings up Drew's blackmail scheme with Portia. According to General Hospital spoilers, Curtis Ashford and Dr. Portia Robinson are letting out a sigh of relief right now. Curtis is mistakenly under the impression that he and Drew Kane have reached a truce and that Portia is no longer vulnerable to Drew's extortion. Drew claimed he intended to keep the blackmail material he had on Portia for the time being, but Curtis and Portia were hopeful he would give it up. Dr. Portia Robinson changed Heather Weber's medical test results, but Drew has no intention of permanently absolving Curtis or Portia. As viewers may remember, Portia was desperate to keep Heather Weber behind bars for her numerous crimes, particularly because at one point Heather was pursuing Portia's daughter, Trina Robinson. Therefore, when it was determined that the majority of Heather's more violent crimes might have been committed while she was afflicted with mercury poisoning, Portia manipulated her lab results to reveal no difference in her mercury levels from when she was killing people as the serial killer known as the Hook. Brad Cooper learned about Dr. Portia Robinson's crimes, and for a brief period of time, he blackmailed Portia himself. However, he ultimately consented to absolve Portia. However, instead of destroying the document as promised, he presented it to Selena Wu as evidence of Portia's acts to please her. Selena didn't waste any time in telling Drew, who has been Brad's replacement ever since. Most recently, Drew requested that Portia change Michael Courtney's blood test to suggest that he had an opioid addiction. Refusing to give in to Drew any longer, Portia had intended to quit her job at General Hospital. Fortunately for Portia, however, Drew and Curtis reportedly reached a truce, meaning that Drew would no longer be posing a threat to her. Isaiah Gannon is aware of the reality. Even though he didn't know what was causing Portia so much distress, Dr. Isaiah Gannon has been there for her for the past few months. Look for Isaiah to approach his supervisor about Drew's blackmail now that he is aware that he was using it against Portia. He might try to get Portia to tell him exactly what Drew has over her head so he can assist however he can. However, he might not be as sympathetic after finding out what Portia did. Now that Isaiah is aware of the truth, only time will tell what he will do. What are your thoughts? Do you think Drew's plan to use blackmail against Portia is truly over? Now that Isaiah is aware that Portia was in danger, will he approach her? If that's the case, what will he do after learning the truth? Keep an eye out because anything can happen in Port Charles. Jason's demand, Britt threatened, Laura enraged, Alexis solution. Here are some General Hospital spoilers. Fans might anticipate threats against Britt Westbourne. Alexis Davis comes up with a fix. Additionally, Jason Morgan presses Anna Devane for answers. The solution of Alexis Davis. Let's start with Alexis, who is furious about Drew Kane's proposal to relocate Scout Kane to Washington, D.C. Monica Quartermain was contacted by the grandmother and lawyer. Monica wasn't feeling well enough to have any guests, though. Alexis then discussed the matter with Jason. According to reports, Alexis will think about taking a risky legal action. Could the attorney attempt to obtain Scout's custody? Or perhaps she will formally forbid Drew from taking the child out of the state? Additionally, a preview film features Alexis and Molly Lansing Davis arguing about Drew and Scout. Liesl Albrecht versus Laura Collins. The mayor becomes irate with Liesl Albrecht at Laura Collins' office. Laura wanted to resolve the conflict and reach a mutually beneficial compromise. Liesl only needed to say what she had to say. Laura then puts her finger in Liesl's face and tells her that she must earn her spot in Rocco Falconeri's life. Britt Westbourne threatened. According to Monday, August 11th General Hospital teasers, Britt remains at the Five Poppies Resort in Croatia. It seemed that the brunette's attempt to defend herself backfired. Britt is now under jeopardy. Jocelyn and Vaughn Jax had reached the resort in the meantime. Joss was unable to identify Britt because of her black floppy hat. But the longer Jocelyn and Vaughn stay at the Five Poppies, the more likely it is that she will run into Britt. Additionally, viewers will witness Anna Devane's attempt to coerce Jason into acting. But until Anna informs him how she obtained the information, the right-hand man does nothing. Cody Bell and Tracy Quartermain had a heart-to-heart. Ava Jerome and Nina Reeves talk about Cody Bell in another place. Jack Brennan's admission is another. Jack stated he had to make a confession after Anna left. Although it appears that Carly Spencer will make an effort to encourage him to talk, Jack is unsure if she will pardon him. Will he truly be honest with Carly about Jocelyn? Is this just another cover tale, though? GH spoilers, 5 Poppies Maxie is gone. According to General Hospital teasers, Maxie will be departing Port Charles for some time. It's unclear how Maxie will leave the canvas, but since she is the adopted daughter of police detective Max Scorpio and would like to get Maxie out of the way, Tracy Quartermaine might view this as a problem because Maxie was the only one who voted against reporting Sonny's corrupt investment in deception to the authorities. Tracy Quartermaine sends Maxie Jones on a trip to sell deception products to resort spas. Tracy would inform Maxie that she had a special mission for her, which would keep her away from Port Charles for the time being. She has a list of resort spas that she wants Maxie to visit and present deception items to in order to grow the deception business abroad. This is only the start of their international expansion. Maxie might not want to go, even though she might believe it's a wonderful idea. Maxie would grudgingly accept Tracy's argument that she is the most qualified candidate for the position despite her skepticism. Maxie Jones leaves for her trip to promote spa items abroad. After discussing the matter with Damian Spinelli, Maxie informed him that she would be traveling for some time to promote deception items to resort spas abroad. Spinelli would reassure her that everything would be all right, even though she would be unhappy to be apart from her kids for a long. Tracy gives Maxie her itinerary, and the 5 Poppies Resort in Croatia is her first destination. Arrival of Maxie Jones at the 5 Poppies Resort. Maxie checks in at the 5 Poppies Resort following a lengthy flight. Maxie would react strongly to seeing Dr. Britt Westbourne alive, so she simply misses seeing her. After showing her about the resort, Pascal would show her to her room. Before her pitch meetings, Maxie would settle in and undoubtedly take advantage of the hotel's amenities. Will Britt and Maxie cross paths? Maxie Jones is captured following her 5 Poppies pitch meeting. Maxie meets with the 5 Poppies management and had a quite fruitful pitch session. In order to test all of the goods in their spas, they agreed to purchase them all. Was Tracy involved in Maxie's disappearance in order to silence her about Deception's corrupt financial practices? Or does someone else bear the blame? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you believe Tracy will leave Maxie behind? Is Maxie going to leave 5 Poppies? Who is in charge of Maxie being missing? As she observed Rocco bent over his homework at the kitchen table, the tension-filled quiet between them strained Lulu's nerves. Lulu could see that the boy wasn't really attentive because his head was lowered and his pencil was writing slowly. Days had passed since he had been. Everything had changed since Britt's story had come to light. A new spark of curiosity, restlessness, and a yearning that Lulu couldn't satiate no matter how tightly she held the reins was suddenly visible in her kid. Shortly after, Dante showed up, throwing his keys on the counter. How is he doing? Lulu let out a breath. He keeps to himself. He's somewhere else, though. I am aware of it. They both turned as Rocco suddenly got up and grabbed his backpack. Where are you heading? Lulu inquired, anticipating the response. The library, he whispered. Lulu scowled and said, I have a scientific thing to research. At this hour, before she could stop him, Dante held up a hand and said, I'll be back before dinner. He said softly, we'll talk later. The door closed with a click. Once more, silence. Lulu replied sourly, he's going to see Liesel. I think so, Dante said. Lulu turned, her chest churning with rage. We advised him to avoid her. Dante shook his head. We warned him against slinking away. Lulu tightened her hands and said, we didn't give him an alternative. She's filling his head with lies about Britt. Or she's answering the questions we keep dodging. That woman shouldn't be around my son. She's deadly. Dante said, he's not a baby anymore, Lou. You are aware of how this operates. Laura's warning echoed in her ears, if you keep telling him no, he'll find a way to hear yes somewhere else. She had only visited a few days before, and in a worried voice, she had urged Lulu to avoid making the same mistakes she had. Avoid pushing him, Laura had said. Lead him. Or you'll lose him. However, Lulu was powerless to stop it. Her skin crawled at the thought of Liesel Albrecht providing her son with comfort and truth. In Port Charles, Liesl had always been a complex character, a lady shrouded in remorse and peculiar ethics. But to Rocco, she was becoming an ally, something very different. Rocco, on the other hand, was not interested in science. Liesl was already sitting close to the rear of Kelly's, her tea boiling in front of her, when he ducked in. She said, "You came," with a smile that was both happy and expected. Liesl pointed to the seat across from her and said, "You said you had more to tell me about Britt." Always. Over the course of the following 30 minutes, she portrayed Britt as a brave, imperfect woman who had learned her lessons the hard way and paid for her sins, rather than as a saint. Rocco listened as though he was hearing his family's narrative for the first time as she related anecdotes, some of which were tragic and some of which were humorous. His ears pricked up when she said the name of Jason Morgan. He said, "I thought he died." Everyone did the same. However, Liesl trailed off, her eyes sparkling, "If Britt is alive. Do you believe he is as well?" Main shots, "I believe that there are a lot of surprises in the world. Additionally, some persons are more difficult to keep buried than others." Lulu paced her house. She grabbed her phone as soon as it rang. "Mom," Laura spoke in a composed tone. "Kevin called me." Rocco was spotted with Liesl once more. "I understand. He went off to the library." Lulu. "Mom, I can't do this. She's not snatching him, but I feel like she is. He's being pushed away by you." Lulu's voice cracked. "I simply don't want to lose him." "Then give him the option to return to you." "It wasn't so simple, though. Don't close every door he's trying to walk through." When Rocco got home that evening, his cheeks were flushed with anticipation. "When Britt was my age, I saw photos of her. Did you know that even at that time, she aspired to become a doctor?" Lulu had a tight smile. "She also made a lot of regrettable decisions. Liesl told me that." Lulu wanted to fight with her when she mentioned that Britt had learned from them. To remind him that Britt had harmed people Lulu cared about, and that people didn't change suddenly. Instead, she inquired, "Did she tell you anything else, things pertaining to Jason?" "Concerning the hospital." Dante waited in the doorway, silently observing about how she and Liesl loved each other despite their constant arguments. He glanced into Lulu's eyes and nodded slightly. Lulu sat next to Dante on the couch after Rocco went to bed. She acknowledged, "He won't stop." "Nope. She's giving him a piece of himself. She's feeding him everything he wants to hear," Dante remarked. "You can either participate in that or be left behind." Lulu took an action the following day that she had never taken before. Liesl was invited over. Rocco bounced between them like a ping-pong ball, thrilled. Additionally, there was a tenuous calm in the air as Liesl and Lulu sat across from one another. "Simply put, I don't trust you," Lulu stated. Liesl gave a nod. "I don't think you will. Nevertheless, I adore my family. He is only a boy. He is your boy. Britt's family, too." It was an uneasy ceasefire, but it was something. "Don't force him to choose." And Lulu really tried, to become softer as the weeks went by. Rocco continued to see Liesl despite her presence. Despite her reservations, she even consented to let him send Britt a letter. It was advancement. Measured, painful progress. However, everything changed once more when a private investigator verified that Britt had been spotted alive close to the Austrian border. Rocco couldn't contain his joy. "She's out there. I was aware of it." Lulu's fear increased. Rocco was interested in meeting her. Wished to take a plane across the sea to give the woman whose tales had become a lifeline a hug. Lulu, however, wasn't prepared for that. "Not right now. Never." She yelled, "You can't just go after ghosts." "She isn't a ghost," he shouted. "She is a member of my family." Lulu realized she had lost another aspect of him after hearing those comments. The following morning, Rocco declared, "I would like to go stay with Grandma for a while." Dante appeared conflicted. "Let's discuss this." Lulu, however, remained silent. She merely gave a nod. She gave her son a hug and expressed her love for him. She sat by herself in the corridor, gazing at the location of his backpack after the door shut behind him. Laura was correct. Too strong of a grip had simply driven him farther away. All Lulu could do now was pray that Rocco's chosen course would come full circle. That he will eventually desire more than just stories. He would seek the truth. Perhaps he would then return home, not for protection but for understanding. General Hospital spoilers, what is Brad's ultimate goal after helping Britt stage her death? According to General Hospital spoilers, a fan hypothesis that Brad Cooper assisted Britt Westbourne in pretending that she was poisoned by Heather Weber's hook in January 2023 is exploding on the internet this week. What we know is as follows. Britt is still alive. In Croatia. She leads a somewhat opulent but also somewhat constrained life. She was just granted permission to travel abroad, but we don't know why the mysterious man who controls her every action might confine her to the hotel for the evening when she wanted to go out to eat. In any case, many are now conjecturing that Brad, her former closest friend, planned the hoax that was her demise, possibly using an antidote or a staged collapse, in order to spare her from the inevitable death that comes with Huntington's disease. Will Brad's secret begin to unravel, though, and what is his motivation? Brad's role in Britt's escape sparks debate. Fans are telling some wild stories about how they think this will work out because Brad helped stage Britt's death, especially after Jason's Parisian glance revealed Britt is still alive. Fans speculate that Brad, a lab tech with access to pharmaceuticals, may have given Heather an antidote or replaced her poison with a harmless alternative, even though Britt's death in Liesl Albrecht's arms appeared to be definitive. His devotion to Britt, developed over many years of friendship, implies that he assisted her in fleeing to Dubrovnik in order to spare her family the suffering caused by her illness. Fans question whether Brad is shielding Britt or has a more sinister plan. Is this the reason he left town several months ago? A secret motive is lurking beneath. It would have been relatively easy for Brad to sneak into GH's laboratory and make a fake poison or remedy. However, if that is the case, it would be appropriate for us to investigate Brad's possible motivations. Is he part of a bigger plan, such as Professor Henry Hank Dalton's tech plot, or did he act out of love? Unaware of Britt's survival, Liesl might turn on Brad if she finds out he didn't tell her. Will Brad's endgame, possibly leverage over Britt, emerge, or will his secret hold? If it weren't true, would he truly betray her? Will Britt be saved or killed by Brad's secret? Investigating the idea that Brad was involved in Britt's staged death is safe. If so, can his activities protect Britt from the inevitable decline that awaits her with Huntington's disease hanging over her head, or will his own agenda come to the fore and present her with unexpected new issues? After all, he had just blackmailed Portia Robinson and demanded money from Drew Quartermain when he left Portia in search of a better life. Even though his heart still bleeds for his ex-hubs, Lucas Jones, it's not like he ever truly turned over that purported new leaf. Fans of GH are hoping that he will remain faithful to Britt. What are your thoughts? Will Brad be there for Britt now, or will he turn on her after all this time? Albrecht at General Hospital, too good to be true? When fans learned that Kathleen Gotti was bringing Albrecht back to Port Charles, they were overjoyed. Fans anticipated that Britt's mother, Liesl Albrecht, portrayed flawlessly by Kathleen Gotti, would return when it was announced that General Hospital would be bringing back Kelly Thibault. Since 2023, when her daughter tragically died, Albrecht has not been in Port Charles. The hook murderer, who turned out to be Heather, fatally stabbed Britt. The ugly, the bad, and the good Dr. Liesl Albrecht has never been a rule follower. In 2012, Albrecht was assisting the notorious Caesar Faison in carrying out one scheming scheme after another when Gotti made his debut as the cold and crafty doctor. One of the most perverse? Capturing Robin and Duke in Switzerland. If that wasn't enough, Liesl even put Robert, Robin's father, in a coma for a full year in order to keep Faison's secret safe. What merciless loyalty! However, Liesl's tale and connections began to grow rapidly when she appeared in Port Charles in 2013. She turned out to be Britt's mother in a startling turn of events, and the two joined up for one of GH's most outrageous baby plots to date. Little Rocco was born as a result of Britt utilizing Dante and Lulu's embryo to impregnate herself with Liesl's assistance. Her network of connections to Port Charles expanded along with her criminal history. Fans discovered in 2014 that Liesl was Nina's aunt and the sister of none other than Madeline. Not only that, but Madeline reared Nathan as her own son, while Liesl was his biological mother. Despite Nathan's untimely death in the line of duty in 2018, Liesl became a loving grandmother to James and got closer to his widow, Maxie. Liesl is also linked to Wiley and Amelia through Willow, Nina's daughter. Rocco emailed her concerns regarding Albrecht's parentage, and Albrecht came back. She also made it in time for Willow and Drew's wedding, which ended in disaster. Gotti's return to the canvas has been incredibly beautiful, and Albrecht appears to have softened even more since her last visit. Although it's unclear if this is all a ruse and Albrecht has always known Britt was alive, based on Gotti's portrayal, it appears Liesl is just as unaware as the others. Knowing that the sincere grief will be replaced by pure delight when she finds out Britt is still alive, it has been a true pleasure to see Albrecht speak passionately about the daughter she lost, with Britt's ex-lover Jason, and with Anna. After seeing Britt in Paris and hearing her voice over the phone, Jason is certain that she did not pass away. The two managed to find a balance between nostalgia and melancholy when Jason attempted to determine whether Liesl was still convinced that Britt was gone, and he refrained from bringing up his suspicions. Although Liesl and Anna's relationship has been quite turbulent, a sincere bond was developed as the two ladies talked about their daughters and the mistakes they had made as mothers. With the reports of Britt's death being highly exaggerated, I am personally forward to see how things unfold after she returns to Port Charles, and Gotti's homecoming is welcome. Do you think Albrecht is concealing the fact that she knows Britt is still alive, or are you glad to see her again? Do you want Albrecht to return to her evil ways, or do you like her now that she's softened? Post your thoughts in the comments section. Jocelyn and Vaughn arrive at the spa, and Anna tells Jason to get Britt. Drew attempted to exert pressure on Liz as Alexis looked to Jason for assistance with the congressman. Anna quarreled with Carly before alerting Jack. Britt found herself in a difficult situation, and Dante and Lulu had a heated encounter with Albrecht that went awry. Curtis and Jordan also threw off some sparks, while Stella noticed something happening between Isaiah and Portia. Off the rails when Lulu unexpectedly ran into Dante at Laura's office, they knew that Rocco must have been the reason Laura had called them. Laura came in and told them that she wanted them to make amends with Liesl Albrecht in order to assist Rocco. Lulu was stunned and adamant that she did not want her son to be around that woman. Although Laura acknowledged this, she reminded her daughter that Rocco had a different opinion. Laura believed that the boy needed to understand that his mother wasn't a terrible monster. However, Lulu responded with a yell. Laura said calmly, perhaps she's more than that. Laura cautioned the worried parents that if they forbade Rocco from meeting Albrecht, he would merely go behind their backs. Instead, she suggested that they sit down together so that the talks would be safer and more open. Dante consented, but Lulu continued to grumble until giving in and requesting that her mother schedule a meeting. When Albrecht eventually showed there, Lulu began by expressing regret for her overreaction at seeing her with Rocco. After accepting, Liesl clarified that she had been approached by Rocco and was merely attempting to assist him with his inquiries. Albrecht acknowledged that she had always hoped that Rocco would get in touch when Dante asked why she had gone to Port Charles for that specific reason. Dante resisted, reminding her that they would be making these kinds of decisions as his parents and that Rocco was still a child. Lulu yelled that they weren't there to talk about their parenting as Albrecht attempted to make the case that Rocco was maturing into a young man and should have some autonomy. Following Laura's intervention, Lulu suggested that they all meet for dinner so that Rocco could voice his questions in front of his parents. Things became snippy once more when Albrecht sarcastically inquired if they would also like to pre-approve his questions and her responses. Liesl gestured to Laura, wondering if his other grandmother would be subject to the same regulations. Lulu growled, "You are not one of Rocco's two grandmothers." Albrecht arrogantly claimed that Britt was the mother of Rocco and that her blood was in his veins. Dante angrily labeled her demented and asserted that Lulu was Rocco's mother. "So some would say that not only am I his grandmother," she said, "but that Britta is as much his mother as you." He angrily remarked, "What your daughter did to us was absolutely horrific. She served as our physician. We also had faith in her. And when we were most at risk, she violated that confidence. Both of you did. You did not simply take a sample. They wouldn't have a son if Britt hadn't carried that child," according to Albrecht, who said, "You stole our embryo." The doctor contended that the implantation might not have been successful because Dante believed they would have found another surrogate. Laura broke in to remind everyone that they were there for Rocco, but Albrecht went on to say that Britt had performed a miracle for them. Dante, pushed to the limit, said that both Britt and Albrecht were criminals. He remembered how she had manipulated his thoughts and attempted to use him as her personal killer, threatening to track down all of the unresolved warrants against her until she left town. Unfazed, Albrecht retaliated by openly speculating about Rocco's possible reaction to his father locking up his grandmother. A last-minute request when Alexis visited the Quartermain estate, Jason regretfully told her that Monica wasn't feeling well enough to host guests today. Alexis said that Machia was probably the only one who could help, but he offered his help. She clarified that Drew intended to relocate to Washington, D.C. with Scout, but she had to be cautious around him because, as a grandmother, she didn't have the same privileges as a father. Alexis bemoaned the fact that every time she believes she is persuading Drew that Scout needs additional family, he acts irrationally. Alexis grumbled that Drew just thinks about himself and that it wasn't fair to Scout or Sam. She sobbed. In the meantime, a little girl is still grieving for her mother. Shouldn't that be important? I mean, shouldn't this be about Scout's needs? Jason concurred that she was correct and that Drew would not hear him out. Since Monica was one of the few people Drew appeared to genuinely admire, Alexis had hoped she might say something to him. After stating that he will forward the message, Jason came back to inform that Monica would speak with Drew as soon as possible. Establishing boundaries at the hospital, a distraught Drew wanted to know how Willow was doing and apologized for disturbing Liz at work. Liz reminded him that she was attempting to reconstruct her life. As Liz gave him a questioning look, he complained, "The life she thinks I destroyed." According to Drew, he only wanted Willow to understand how much he loves her, how awful he feels, and how much he wants to make things right. Liz urged him to allow Willow the time and space she needs to recover, pointing out that certain things are beyond his control. Liz correctly pointed out that Willow wasn't alone and that he couldn't solve this on his own, as Drew was worried that he didn't want to desert her and leave her alone in her time of need. Drew attempted to clarify that he was deeply in love with Willow and that Nina had never meant anything to him, but Curtis completely destroyed the argument. Liz contended that Curtis was merely attempting to act morally for Willow, to which Drew retorted angrily, "Be honest with me, Elizabeth. Do you genuinely believe Willow is doing better now?" Liz acknowledged that she was unable to say that, but at least Willow was now basing her choices on the facts. She also remembered how her own lies had harmed Drew and others around her in the past. They might find an honest way back to each other if he gave Willow the time she needed to recover, Liz said. As Drew walked out of the office, he looked back to thank Willow for having someone like Liz by her side. Workplace conduct: Isaiah became notably flirtatious with Portia while he was leaving the hospital on off-duty, expressing his happiness that she hadn't quit. She clarified that although there were still issues, they were improving, and she was appreciative of his assistance and encouragement. Additionally, Portia mentioned that things had improved with Curtis as well, and he expressed his happiness at the news. Then she shifted the conversation to him and inquired as to whether he was putting himself out there. Isaiah acknowledged that the majority of his leisure time was being spent remodeling the cottage that Lucky had given him. He remarked thoughtfully, "Most good things require a little effort." After a long day of work, Portia encouraged him to relax and touched his arm before telling him to get home safely. Isaiah took note of the gesture, said he would, and smiled as he walked away. Concerned that their friendship would be interpreted as improper for their professional setting, Portia questioned directly how close she and Dr. Gannon were, playing it calm while Stella gave her a disapproving look. After reassuring her that she had boundaries, Portia thanked Stella for not interfering and letting her and Curtis resolve their differences amicably. They joyfully embraced, and Stella was happy to hear that they were working on their marriage. Drew faked it and called to start an insurance fraud inquiry after spotting them down the hallway. Reconnecting, Jordan ran into Curtis while jogging in the park, and they talked about the previous wedding disaster. When he told her that Drew had suggested a truce, she became doubtful, but Curtis reassured her that he was being cautious. Additionally, he disclosed that he and Portia had discussed the matter and planned to improve their marriage. Curtis said that she had been honest about their spark and prevented them from reverting to their previous relationship, something Jordan didn't understand and for which he was thankful. Although neither of them seemed to fully believe what they were saying, they both agreed that they could keep being friends now that the boundaries had been drawn once more. When Curtis inquired about her work with Sidwell, she said that things were going great. Jordan assured her that she was not losing sight of her objective when he reminded her that she worked for a dangerous and unscrupulous man. By obtaining a new residence suited for the COO of a multinational company, she was actually strengthening her cover. Jordan pointed out the skyscraper in the distance as he insisted on assisting her with the walkthrough. Jordan concurred that things were coming full circle, and Curtis pointed out that she would have a view of the water, just like in Baltimore. They both had a little nostalgic expression. At that moment, Isaiah happened to be walking close by, and his expression dropped as he observed the two of them laughing and conversing. Secrets and Lies. Carly enthusiastically proposed to Jack that they go on a romantic getaway, maybe to the Finger Lakes for a wine sampling. They had some unresolved business, but Anna apologized for disturbing Carly. Carly became agitated and scolded Anna for wanting to speak with her in the past but never doing so. As she pointedly stated that she occasionally gets held hostage by events in her role as police commissioner, Anna shot Brennan a look. Carly, still huffy, demanded to know what they had to talk about, and Anna clarified that Lucas had accused Sonny of kidnapping Marco and asked if she had any more information. Carly became irate and yelled that she didn't before rushing off to assist the chef in the kitchen. When Brennan asked Anna what she was up to, she replied that she was interested in how Carly would respond if she found out that he had enlisted her daughter to spy for the WSB and sent her on a risky assignment abroad. He icily noted that she was unable to speak because that would be treason. Anna conceded that she had no choice but threatened to tell Carly everything if Jocelyn was harmed. Later, when Carly came back with some wine to preview their weekend, she said that she was glad Joss was taking some time off in Australia and that she really appreciated Anna alerting her about Vaughn. Jack halted the jubilation after displaying a solemn expression. He declared, "Carly, I have to tell you something. I haven't been totally honest with you." Britt fights back at the Five Poppies Resort in Croatia. Britt was enjoying a drink and lounging in the sun when Pascal interrupted to demand that she get back to work in the lab since he was expecting results. Britt announced her strike in a contemptuous manner. Later, Pascal came back to say that the lab's air filtering system was being fixed while they were speaking, so she should be able to resume her job comfortably. Britt and she both claimed that the job needed ideal conditions, implying that he wouldn't want anything to go wrong while he was in charge. Pascal returned a little later to say that the matter had been settled and that everything was operating as it should. When Britt said that she wasn't working at her best because she had had too many cocktails, she slurred her words a little. Pascal sternly cautioned that they had means to sober her up and roughly grabbed her arm to prevent her from leaving. Britt warned that he wouldn't want him to treat her in this manner, but Pascal retorted that he disliked delays and that she was creating an excessive number of them. Jocelyn and Vaughn showed up covertly at that precise moment, inquiring as to whether this was the correct check-in location. Anna, meantime, came to the Quartermaines in Port Charles in a panic, telling Jason that she had changed her mind about Britt. "You must locate her," she said. "As quickly as possible." Thanks for watching. If you like this video, so please don't forget to subscribe my channel and don't miss any update.